Welcome to OnGrid Time Attack Round 4 at the Ridge Motorsports Park. This is Day 2, Session 2, and it's raining. It started raining about 10 minutes before the session started, and I had Yokohama AO52 tires mounted, which do great in the rain, so I thought it'd be a really fun session, and it turned out to be one of the most fun sessions for me over the 2 competition days. It wasn't a fast lap for the competition, but it was just really fun because it started out damp and it got progressively drier. Some sections stayed damp, some got drier faster. So just the mixed conditions made it a constant challenge to try to figure out where the grip was and to maximize your speed through each section without pushing too hard and spinning off. So Ryan is in front of us. He's in a Supra with slicks and probably didn't have enough heat in those tires to really start pushing, so I think he let a couple cars by while he continued to get some heat in those tires. There's no standing water, so the slicks aren't going to hydroplane, but until they get some heat, they're going to be really slippery. So most of the drivers in Pacific Northwest Time Attack community are super good about letting people pass so they're not holding them up or obstructing their kind of hot laps. So that's exactly what Ryan was doing there. So as we go around, I'm just testing the grip in all these places, kind of progressively feeding in more throttle and hitting the brakes and turning in more aggressively. Try to figure out how much grip I have in the car and in different parts of the track. So I'll, hit some throttle on here and seems like it's got pretty decent traction. And then other sections as I go around, the car will start to get a little squirmy. So I've got a good feeling for how much grip the track has in general. So I'm being pretty aggressive here, just trying to get heat in the tires. These tires, once up to temperature, are really grippy, but when they're cold, of course, they don't have as much grip. So even in the wet, you want to get them up to temperature as fast as you can, and they'll have way more grip. This section of the track is very slippery, and it basically stays wet the entire session. So I have to be really gentle around here and be really easy on the throttle through this section until I'm up to 90 or 100 miles an hour, where there's enough downforce to really push those tires into the ground where you can go full throttle. So at this point it's still raining lightly, but I've got a pretty good feel for the grip, so I'm going to start turning up the pace and seeing what we can do. Trying to be very smooth with inputs, trying to stay off the curbs. Painted curbs are often very, very slippery when they're wet. So trying to use as much track as possible, but stay off the curbs. You can see there, just touched it and it was a little upsetting. Again, it's these higher speed sections, easing off in a few places, just taking it easy. I'm not quite sure how much grip I've got in those higher speed turns, but once you're above 90 or 100 miles an hour, it's amazing with the aero that this car has, how much grip you get with that downforce at higher speeds. As soon as you slow down a little bit, you lose that aero downforce. It's just purely down to mechanical grip, and it gets really slippery. The Garmin data logger in the middle of the dash is having trouble connecting to the satellite, so the data hasn't been great this whole weekend. The predictive is kind of bouncing around. The lap times that it shows aren't always accurate. However, up in the right-hand upper left of the screen is the data provided by the VBox HD2, which is very accurate. You can see the speed and the time delta and the lap times, and also the throttle and brake traces over on the far right. And you can see just how kind of gentle I get on the throttle in these, coming out of these corners. This car has quite a bit of torque. With the turbo, it spools up very quickly. And in these conditions, you don't want to overwhelm the tires, so just trying to feed things in very, very gently. And then once we get up to speed, kind of go to full throttle. These Yokohama AO52s typically heat up first lap out. Most of the times my fastest lap is the very first lap, followed by the second lap is generally very close, but the tires overheat and fall off pace by the third lap. So they come up temp really quickly, but they overheat quickly on this heavy kind of high horsepower car. In my S2000 that was significantly lighter, I would get 4 to 5 laps out of them easily, and usually my fastest lap was like lap 4 or 5 before they started to fall off. But in this car, it's totally different. But in these conditions, since it's wet and we're not pushing that hard, they seem like they're lasting a lot longer before they overtemp. So that lap was a 148.7, and times are just falling. It's getting drier and drier on this side of the track. It's no longer sprinkling, and it's definitely a lot drier and has a lot more grip. So continuing to push harder and harder. For time attack competition, your fastest lap over the 2 days is what counts for results. So when there's a session like this, when it's raining, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have your fastest lap over the 2 days. And so some people just sit it out. It's not worth the risk. But a lot of people still came out. I think, especially in the Pacific Northwest, we deal with wet tracks often. And it's just a really fun way to explore the limits of the car, going a little bit slower, and just much different kind of dynamics and limits. And I think it really helps drivers get better at exploring the limits and driving at the limit and slightly over and trying to bring it back. It's just a really fun opportunity, especially in this where it's a mixed condition, where some sections of the track are full pace and others are like right here are very slippery, and just going through there just on your tippy toes and barely keeping the car straight. And coming out of that corner especially, it's not uncommon for cars to get onto throttle too early and then loop out and either end up in the grass or worst case into the wall. So I'm exiting that corner very gently and waiting till I've got enough speed and enough downforce to toe into the throttle. One of the amazing things about the time attack competitions with OnGrid and others is how much open lapping you get. So in this session, I started out in second, and Ryan and the Supra let me by in the warm-up lap. And so there's a bunch of cars behind me, but we're gridded by speed, so we're just all kind of separating as we go. And so you get just a ton of open laps. And you can see him coming up on Ryan. He's probably on a cool down, and he knows I'm coming, so he gets out of the way and lets me go by without obstructing my time. He probably sped up going through 9 and 10 so that he could get in a safe zone for me to pass, and that's very much appreciated. The drivers in the Pacific Northwest time attack community are really good about keeping their eyes up, especially on a cool down lap, just watching their mirrors and looking behind. This track has a bunch of spots where you can basically look over the track to see, several corners back to determine if there's any cars coming up so that you can position yourself in a safe spot. There's a few places that you don't really want to be if there's a faster car coming up on you, like turns kind of 8A, 8B, 9, 10 are some of those. They're especially like turn 10, it's pretty blind and you're coming up at really high speed, so it can be pretty scary to come over that crest and see a car on a slowdown in the way. So if you know there's a car coming, then you can accelerate and kind of get through those areas to allow a pass to happen in a more safe zone. It's appreciated, and the drivers in this group are really good about doing that. So the last lap was a 1:45. So times are just dropping every single lap. And at this point, lap 5, with this much dry track and pushing it this hard, the tires are starting to overheat a little bit. Still a decent pace, but I can feel them falling off a little bit. So at this point, I'm deciding to complete this lap and then run a cool down, and if I still have time, maybe do one more hot lap before the end of the session. So you've got to be really on your toes because you're used to pushing really hard in all these dry sections, and then you get to that last turn and it's really slippery. So you have to just be constantly aware of these changing conditions. So that was a 1:44, and then I decided to go ahead and do a cool down. We'll just speed up the video so we're not going real time through this. And as I'm going through here, I'm just constantly watching for cars in my mirrors or looking across the track to see where they are. And at this point I saw that Carl was coming up behind me, so I actually accelerate and try to go kind of full speed through here so he's not catching me in kind of turns 8, 9, and 10. Get around this corner and kind of pull over, wave him by, and slow way down so that I don't impede his lap. And then I see Ryan coming as well, get out of his way. And then I'll come around this last turn and see if I can't get one more hot lap in. Actual speed seems really slow and boring after that fun little trip. So we go in here, we're a little down on pace still, like minimum speed still 3-4 miles an hour slow. Tires just haven't fully recovered. I don't know if they ever really fully recover the AO52s when they're lapping. You can take a cool down and they come back a little bit, but I don't think they're ever 100% again. So the delta is showing we're up by half a second from the previous fast lap. So we're still making up time. See if we can't push a little harder. Track is definitely completely dry on this side. Last couple turns, I see Ryan in the Supra up ahead. Looks like he's on a cool down lap, or maybe he's pulling off. So I slow down a little bit, more than I need to, just not sure exactly what he's doing, but he sees me coming and he makes it very clear, and he gives me a point by and gets out of the way. So I tiptoe around this last corner and try to feed in some throttle, so we're up over a second, almost a second and a half at this point. Checkered flag waves, so we finish this with a 1:42.6.